everybody, and welcome to Cizzles, the only place to ingest the latest in technology for higher education and related providers. I'm Christine Parsons, and I would like to start by introducing our guest chef tonight, Dr. Trey Vasquez. Trey, tell us who your esteemed guests are and what you're going to be cooking up tonight.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. I have Doctors Lisa Dieker and Michael Kennedy with us to talk about podcasts today. That's the technology we're going to highlight. Podcasts have been around since the early 80s, but they've really taken off in the last decade. The topics are totally unlimited, and content creators are from all walks of life. Podcasting is a way to automatically distribute audio and video files over the internet, and users who download that audio and video podcast can listen to them or watch them in digital media files on their personal computer or their personal phone devices. So please welcome Dr. Lisa Dieker and Michael Kennedy, who have extensive experience in this area and will help us get the insights of what podcasts are like. So let me go ahead and start with Dr. Dieker. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, your research, and how you've used podcasts in the past and present?
Got it. Well, good evening, everyone. Hi. Again, I am Lisa Dieker, and I am a professor, Pegasus professor, and Lockheed Martin Eminent Scholar here at the University of Central Florida in Orlando, where, I don't know, I think it's like 80 degrees today. And I have the privilege of doing work with Dr. Vasquez, actually doing some work with Dr. Kennedy too. And of course, Christine, who does all kinds of great work with our institute. I run the Lockheed Martin Mathematics and Science Academy with great colleagues in mathematics and science. My discipline is special ed, where I actually co-direct the PhD program. And then I also have the privilege of running a center called the Center for Research and Education, Simulation and Technology. And my podcast is with my dear friend, Rebecca Hines. If you've never met Becky, she might be one of the funniest people I know and one of the most innovative. And we have a podcast called Practical Access.
Awesome. Thanks. Dr. Kennedy, please introduce yourself and how you've used podcasts in the past and future.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Trey, Christine, and Lisa. So I'm Michael Kennedy from the University of Virginia. My research lies at the intersection of multimedia implementation, teacher quality, and implementation of evidence-based and high-leverage practices. My introduction to podcasts came during my doctoral program at the University of Kansas. We were looking for ways to sort of what we would now call flipping the classroom. I don't know that term existed quite yet, but we were always concerned that, geez, in this intro to SPED course, it's like this one chance we get, especially with the general ed colleagues, to get them special ed content. And we're using the entire class, giving them stuff they could read or they could acquire through what we would now call podcasts. And then during class, if we could do that, then during class, we could do some exciting things like have debates and hands-on and other kinds of activities that we thought would be more meaningful. So we took the content in a condensed way. We found out about Richard Mayer's work, Richard Mayer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning. And he has a set of design principles that helped us to think about, we really want to keep cognitive load and overload low, and we can do that in ways X, Y, and Z, which we could get into during our visit tonight. And then we sort of married the podcast part where we can deliver the instruction within this audio visual package. And we started doing this mini experiments to say, if we do this, for a group of teacher candidates, if group one gets this content through what we end up calling CAPS, content acquisition podcasts, group two got kicked in the shin and read about it, or kicked in the shin and then did a live lecture, who would do better on a post-test and hang on to their learning later on? And we found over and over again that the podcast group had a better time. They started to tell us they preferred it to go along with the measurable learning differences. And then we started to do other things. We started to insert not just static knowledge, but hey, watch this modeling video within it. Watch a teacher implementing. So we were able to get teachers to say, not just to boost their knowledge, but then boost their ability to learn a new practice and then do it later, which was really exciting. So that's, there's certainly more to it than that, but there's a few words on intro.
Awesome. Lisa, can you tell the audience, I know that you and Becky really focused your practical access on the K-12 teacher. Can you tell us some strengths and limitations of using the podcast technology to reach that audience?
Yeah, so let me give you a little background how it really came about. There was this thing called this pandemic that I believe most of us may have heard about. And if those of you who don't know me, I don't do well without people around me and sitting quietly. And if you met Becky, she doesn't do any better. And we were getting lots of questions, and Becky is quite the innovator in online learning. And people were like, well, how do I do this? How do I service an IEP? How do I co-teach? And we both were like, all right, I'm getting an email by the hour. Are you the same? And she's like, yeah. We're like, you know what? Let's just start a podcast. So we really did start by focusing on K-12 teachers. And so we have 4 seasons of podcasts now. And the first one was a lot about this really helping those teachers. So we were not nearly as sophisticated as you, Michael. We just kind of went for it. And we just started talking about questions and what people were asking, because every email we get, we're like, hey, let's just do a podcast so we can answer it all. It's interesting that the one podcast that has had the most hits, which kind of surprises me, was our one on tips for teaching students with disabilities in our new online world. Because immediately people were like, I need something quick. So that one started in March of 2020. And since then, we have 4 different seasons. The second season, we really did a lot of like, what's a teacher worried about, from bullying to text. But we're also trying to help families. So again, I myself am a parent of a child with a disability. So we were really trying to reach out and say, you know, what do families need? I personally, if I were going to listen to any seasons, I love all of them. But season 3 is really fun because it's people with disabilities talking about their role as professionals in K-12 or higher ed spaces, and really great tips, as well as some great leaders. And then the last piece I'll just kind of highlight for you is the kind of the social emotional learning. This was the last season. And then I guess I'll give you a sneak preview. We started recording today, and those will come out in June. And it's probably our silliest ones, where we're just doing like, what's the book of the week, book of the day, current event type of piece. So we're really trying to reach both families and trying to give role models for people with disabilities of people who've been very, very successful. So highly recommend, if you're a person with a disability or you do teach like an intro to disability, our season 3 guests have some really brilliant insights.
Thanks so much. Michael, I'm going to ask you this question. It's how can educators and related service providers leverage podcasts in their classroom or create it for themselves to disseminate for others?
Yeah. So a couple ideas about that. Certainly for teacher use, I would always, it's nice that the question's there. That helps. I always think about, okay, what do the students need? So what are their individualized goals? And how do those goals intersect with the standard or standards that's being taught within the curriculum? That always helps me, first of all, to, okay, where's the alignment? Where's the mismatch between what the students are really in need of and what are we doing now? That often is the place where we recognize, okay, we have a gap here. And technology is often looked to as one of those either accommodations or modifications and or scaffolds that we can provide as part of the specially designed instruction that can help be successful. So in terms of leveraging podcasting, my team has always first and foremost been about, okay, well, what's the evidence-based practice that we're trying to deliver? And a lot of times it's around vocabulary, especially to my research. So if we're in, let's say, a middle school science classroom, and I've got 100 words that mean nothing outside of the science classroom, like who knows what mitosis is? If you do, you win a prize. But most of us, it's just not a word we use. Like, would we all be dead without it? Yes. But for a 7th grader needs to know what it means for some reason. So I need to think about what's an evidence-based practice for delivering mitosis, but do so in a way that's meaningful to the student, something that they can connect with, something they'd be willing to watch if I wasn't standing there demanding that they do so, and something that's going to be memorable that they can hang on to, either from an anchored instruction approach or just from we gave it to them in a way that made sense. So what I like to do is take student-friendly definitions, lots of examples, a demonstration, some kind of way to give them a lot of repetition within the clear language, a very explicit instruction framework, sort of our bread and butter backbone practice within special education. Then layer on top of that the technology as the delivery mechanism, which permits me to save time. It permits me to give the kids a learning option that they can use and reuse on a repeated basis. So the teacher can use the material at first exposure if that's their choice, but the kid can again watch it and watch it and watch it, and they can create their own, and they can create some for their class, and they can make them for their study buddy. The options get exciting and limitless in a hurry. And that's what's really exciting about podcasting is there's no one way. It's a very UDL approach. If the audience is familiar with the principles of universal design for learning, we're trying to offer high quality options that make sense to kids. So I hope I'm getting at what you were hoping for, but that's the way
Absolutely.
I think about it.
Thanks. Now, Lisa, I know that you and Becky have had to purchase some special equipment to get this off the ground. What would an average teacher or content creator need to get into the game of podcasting?
Well, so you're making assumptions. We did purchase special equipment. We did not initially. So some of our earlier podcasts might be a little shaky, and we're still working on finding the perfect thing. But I can tell you one thing tonight that I like to use when I'm online is a Loom Cube. I don't know if you're able to see mine. It does make me look 10 years younger. So that's one of the reasons I keep it. But it's helpful for that. But most podcasting, you want to remember, no one's going to see you. So that's the beauty. You can be, we might be lounging in our, controlled Care Aloha bed, lifted up, sitting with a laptop. It doesn't have to be that fancy, but I do think you want to have a good sound system, and you want to have a good internet connection. Really nothing fancier than that. Becky and I, because we do it together, we like to do it through Zoom, and we have a really high-tech way of doing it. When she says something that I really want to piggyback on, I go like this. And she knows that she's supposed to stop talking and it's my turn. And then she does that. We usually kind of ping pong it back and forth. And then one of the things that we've taken to heart is one of our guests reminded us that when you do a podcast with two people, that it wasn't very friendly, even though we were using auto caption. Because it doesn't tell which person is speaking. So we now have paid for somebody to say which one of us is speaking at what point in time. So we have somebody doing that. We have somebody who's doing some trying to get it out there. We broke into the top 200 of something on Apple. We're like, yay, we don't really care because we were really doing it to make a difference. And that actually started happening when we did something we called problems of practice, which we called them pop sessions, and teachers called in our Google Voice. So that's something else we've added is a Google Voice number. So I didn't have to give up my cell phone to get the podcast going. Teachers then left voice messages. We played their message so that, again, a little bit different than what Michael was talking about. We're trying to be really responsive to those K-12 teachers, boots on the ground in the field. And then the last thing I'll just tell you is that we purchased some, we're doing ours through Buzzsprout. So we purchased a software site to do it. And we love the analytics. We don't know why, but Ireland loves us. So we have a pretty good following in Ireland. And I can't tell you why. We do know in Leesburg, my mother's listening to me regularly. So again, you have to look at those. But the analytics normally just tell you who downloads it. It doesn't tell you who listens. So those are some of the really basic things that we've done. But I don't think it takes a lot. Literally, you could start a podcast tonight with a laptop and a microphone.
Amazing. So this is a question for both of you, and that is, you kind of touched on it, Lisa, but how do we make this more accessible for persons with and without disabilities, and just access for all? Open floor. Whoever wants to speak. You can do the.
You can point at Michael. It's your turn. No,
Go ahead, Michael. You take it over.
Lisa, you did say it. Ensuring that the content we create is available in multiple modes. So for our instructional videos that we make, that comes in two ways that we like to do it. One is we always just use regular PowerPoint as the way to create the images, and then the script is in the speaker notes. And so when we record it, we'll use that script word for word. Well, that makes it heck of easy to just give those slides, to the student, and then they can just read it for themselves if audio is their thing and reading is intact. But also when we record them, of course, having the transcript at the bottom. So that's sort of just a standard accommodation that we would do for everybody. But I think making those slides available so that, our teachers can use them live during class if that's a choice they want to make, and then they can provide guided notes that go along with them that the kids can either have filled out ahead of time or help to scaffold their filling out. But when they're recorded, the closed captions is probably the most logical.
Yeah, and go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
No, I was doing the thing. I was just pointing at you and muting myself.
My turn. Got it. I love it. You've got my code already for podcasting with the team. All three of you can be pointing, or all four of you. The only other thing I would add is we really did think hard about what site to use. We wanted to make sure the web links were easy to use. We asked a couple of friends to give us feedback, this one or that one. And then the other thing we have done is we've made sure that there's multiple markets for our podcast, so that if you would, rather listen to it on your iPod, iPad, whatever, or you'd like to download it and listen to your radio in your car, because again, I think not only is universal design for learning part of it, but accessibility across platforms. So again, I would caution you, if you're teaching a class and you're going to embed this in an LMS system, make sure your LMS system isn't, limited in who can access it or how they can access it. And again, it is literally the simplest thing I've ever done. The hardest thing I did was subscribing to all these different podcast outlets. That probably took more time than anything. And then just getting good at transcribing and getting, like I said, Becky and I getting the guest lines up. Who do we want? When do we want? How do we want? Sometimes we record a couple times a week. Sometimes we have a blitz day where we record 6 or 7 sessions and then just kind of roll them out over time. But I would say the most challenging season 2 we've had so far would be getting that extra speaker. So again, keep thinking, we had to line the speakers up, but we then also had to have better narration, and we had to also then have more speaker back and forth who was talking. So it took a little extra time. We've been privileged that Northrop Grumman, we're not sure why, somebody was listening from their group, and when they gave money to UCF, they actually asked to give funds to our podcast because there must be in Ireland, I don't know, but again, we're very, very appreciative of that. And so that's allowed us, they have a real big disability focus as part of their philanthropic efforts. And so that's allowed us to pay for some of the transcription and all of that. It does do it auto, but again, if you're doing it solo, simple, but if you're going to have more than one person, you will want somebody to help you, good undergrad or something like that.
Great tips. Thank you both. So at CIDDL Cizzles, one of the aspects of our program is that we try to relate the technology to food, to bring people to the table. And so to model the use of podcasts, my boys and I decided to listen to America's Test Kitchen, which is from the public broadcasting station. And we were able to come up with a very nifty bread recipe. Christine, do you want to roll the video of the boys baking bread?
I am on pins and needles to be able to get this video started. So please enjoy. Yeah, it's a matter of time that we got to this video. So let's watch.
The supplies necessary for making bread is 2 bowls, a scale, and a spoon. To make bread, we need 1,000 grams of flour, 780 milliliters of H2O. We need salt, 20 grams, and we need yeast. We measured out 1,000 grams of flour. We measured out 780 milliliters of water. Next, we add salt. The next step is to pinch the yeast. Now mix the ingredients together. Now that the dough is together, every 30 minutes you need to fold it. After 30 minutes, fold.
30 minutes.
And then wait another 30 minutes. This is the second of 3 dry minutes. Fold and repeat. last step is to prove and bake the bread.
Good job, boys.
Break it up.
Put it on the oven. Very good.
Now that the bread is hot, you shall need to let it cool. Thank you to the podcast for helping us with this recipe.
So that was my proud papa moment. And you found out that America's Test Kitchen is one of my favorite podcasts. Lisa and Michael, can you share with us some of your favorite podcasts that you listen to on a regular basis? I'll start with Lisa.
Well, you know what? I'm kind of old school and like to listen to things like Dave Ramsey, How to Get Organized. I'm one of those people that, I don't have a lot of time to listen because I spend most of my time reading. But anything along the line of finance or time management would be my go-to podcast on a regular basis.
This is my darkest secret. It's my shame. You won't believe my answer to this. I don't listen to podcasts. I make them. And then I don't want anything to do with it. I want to watch Star Wars and Marvel, and I've watched it 10 times. I'm going to watch it again. And The Simpsons episodes that I watched 30 years ago when I was a child, I'll watch that. I do not listen to podcasts. It's my darkest secret, and now the world knows.
Well, thank you for being brutally honest. I actually have a couple of podcasts that we'd like to share on the link. One of them, or many of them, are related to Dr. Dieker and Dr. Kennedy's work. The links will be posted. Christine, I don't know where.
In the comments, you'll be able to see the links that Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Dieker both have participated in.
Wonderful. So we want to make sure we shout out to our friends and publicize them as much as possible. And we want to be able to enjoy the use of podcasts if you want to create them as a teacher, as a faculty member, as a doc student, or use someone else's podcast in your instruction. We hope that we've given you a little taste of what podcasts can do, and we thank you for your time.
Now, Trey, is there anything that you want to add about how your technology relates to your recipes? Because after all, this is a little friendly competition that we have at Cizzles. And the audience is going to be able to go to CIDDL.org and rate your performance in terms of connection, preparation, and aesthetics of your presentation. Is there anything that you would like to add to sway their vote?
Sure. So there was a clear connection between my boys and I watching a podcast or listening to a podcast to teach us how to bake bread. You can do the same thing with many topics, as both Dr. Dieker and Kennedy have provided. In preparation, we were able to demonstrate the concepts of the podcast to educate ourselves and the task analysis and recipe of the bread. And we also, from the aesthetics, we finished the bread. We actually shared it with a bunch of friends at a party. Christine, you were there. You were a taste tester. I think we left, the majority of the bread there because we didn't need the extra carbs at home.
There was not much left. Let's just say that. And it was amazingly delicious.
So there's my validation. It works, and we should win. Team Vasquez.
So
all right.
Let me promote him a little further. Our first podcast of this coming season, as a teaser, is infusing the day with mathematical moments. So I think you win in aligning with our next podcast. How weird is that?
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Perfect. Well, if you're interested in watching the next podcast, it will be available May 27th at 7 p.m. We'll be having Dr. Richard Carter from the University of Wyoming sharing some of his secret chef recipes. So please make sure that you join us on May 27th live again at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Voting is open for Dr. Vasquez for 1 week, and there will be a cook-off sometime in November with the top 3 rated chefs. And to vote for Trey, please go to CIDDL.org. Thank you so much, everyone, for the presentation. We really appreciated this. I found it very helpful myself. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everyone.